Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to today's Periscope. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Tony, welcome back, Tony. Hello, my love. Hello, Joe. Hello, Literally Great. Hello, Zoraida, Hallie, Goddess Warrior. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining me today. I am so excited to be here with you all. Hello again. Yes, hello again. So thank you all for joining. It is such an honor to be here with you today and talk about sexual desire. Yes, and we're going to talk a bit about some of the differences, but really driving home, some of the tips, right? So I want to start off today actually with our daily position, and this one's actually really fun. And the one that I picked for today is not a position, but a popsicle. It's a popsicle, right? Because ice and popsicles are something that you can use in the bedroom to add a little excitement and flavor and some temperature change, right? So you can actually eat a couple of ice cubes right before giving oral sex, and that creates a different sensation. And you can also eat a popsicle while you're doing it and have that be the source of flavor. So that is the little sex tip or the daily sex tip for today. This is what here. We are talking about sexuality here. I caught the right one this time. Thank you, Warrior King. Does sexual desire include the sacral chakra? Yes. Hello, Scott. Hello, my love. So sexual desire comes, right? It's rooted in the sacral chakra. So our sacral chakra, I'm gonna backtrack and say the chakras are energy centers, right? We have 7 primary energy centers, and there's one right in our pelvic area, both for men and women, and that is called our sacral chakra, and that is where a lot of our sexual energy and creativity lies. Oh, this is very hard to understand when you are French. I'm so sorry, my love. Bonjour. Heart goes out to you. So our sacral chakra is definitely where a lot of desire is rooted. So thank you for asking that, because that does have to do with a lot of our energy, right? So starting there, right, if we have some type of blockage in our energy, then our desire is blocked, right? So if we have some restrictions, and what can cause blocks, right? So trauma can cause blocks, lack of energy movement, right? So if for some reason we're not balanced, right? It's not just about having our sacral chakra balanced, it's about having our entire body balanced, because if your throat is blocked, then energy cannot flow down or up. So you are very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. So definitely having a balance of our energies is super important in sexual desire, because you really want the flow of energy to go up and down the chakra system. Is your thought based on a method or a book? My thought is based on a compilation of different things. I've read several books. I've studied human sexuality. I've studied relationship science. I've worked with clients for a very long time, and I kind of take from both lived experience, research, and everything that all of my wisdom. Can our sexual desire throw something out of balance? Can our sexual desire throw something out of balance? That is a really good question, Scott. Thank you for asking that one. And I would say that our sexual desire can be off balanced, in that sometimes we can misinterpret energy, right? So sometimes we have creative energy flowing through us, and it's wanting to express itself, and instead of us creating, we channel that energy because it's coming from the sacral chakra. We channel it towards sex. So it's not saying that sex, your sexual drive, having a high appetite for sex is bad at all. No, like I don't believe in sex addiction, and I think that that's a really big misconception. Yes, there is such a thing as not being able to feel satisfied by sex, but that's not considered sex addiction. That's an entirely different thing. So in terms of can your sex drive really throw things off, I would say it kind of can, but not necessarily. I think it's really just a misreading a lot of the times of energy, and it's creative energy. That's a lot of, our ideas rise up from our sacral chakra through to our third eye, right? And then that's when it becomes a thought. So that is my 2 cents on can our sexual desires and sex drive influence our balance. So I have some awesome information to share with you all. And the first thing that I want to share is that for both men and women, desire does happen a little bit differently. And yes, Zoraida, different cultures have different sex drives. Culturally, women are impacted more by society and culture than men are in regards to their sex drive. Hello from Sweden. Hi. I hope it's not so cold over there. Do you think watching too much porn ruins real sex with people? Yeah, I'm loving these questions. I feel like I'm doing like a little Q&A here today, so it's awesome. So can porn ruin real sex? Yes. And here's the reason why it can. And I think that this is, porn itself cannot ruin anything, but how we internalize porn does influence things. So, for example, some people watch porn and really take it literally. Like, this is the way sex happens. And I've seen this especially happening with a lot of youth. They watch porn, they consume it, and then they want their girlfriends, these 16, 15-year-old girls, to do exactly what's happening on these porns. And the reality is that porn is porn. It is fantasy. It is fictional, right? And that's not necessarily how real people are having sex. So there can be disappointment, right? When you then go to have sex with someone and it doesn't look like porn. So that's the psychological thing that is throwing. Women can be more strong than society. Is this possible? Yes. I missed the second comment or question. Sorry about that. Sometimes they come up really fast, and especially if you are all typing away, I might miss a comment or two, but feel free to throw it back up if it was a question. So, society has shaped the way that women experience their sexuality, but however, nowadays, there's almost like a revolution happening around sexuality where women are much more expressed. 10, 20 years ago, women didn't feel comfortable like breastfeeding outside, and now they do. So that's another way that we've claimed our sexuality and put it out there. The word nympho, sometimes female, lives for sex. Yeah, so nymphos are people who really have a strong urge for sex, a high drive, and that's something that is okay. Like, I think that there's a lot of shaming, and that's why the media has created this sensation of like, oh my God, sex addiction and sex, over sexing, that really there is no normal in terms of how often is good or how often is not good. It really depends on the person and their circumstance, because someone might have a really strong appetite for 5 years and then something changes hormonally or their relationship status changes and then they don't have sex for a while, and that's okay. I know a lot of girls that don't want to give oral, and even when I offer to eat them out, dicen que no. Oh, okay. Yeah, so oral sex. Let's talk a little bit about oral sex since it's coming up. And today we will just flow with the questions. Normally females say the definition online, sexes definitions. Okay. So with oral sex, you know, there is a lot of, I guess, intimidation, a little bit of fear that comes around sex, oral sex specifically. You know, a lot of women are afraid to have oral sex, to enjoy the receiving of oral sex, because, you know, they worry about how it tastes and how it smells and where in their cycle they are. So these are things to just keep in mind. In America, women are men, sorry. I'm not sure what you were asking. I'm sorry. So with oral sex, those are things that you have to like take into consideration. And also, some women have never experienced oral sex. So when someone offers it for the very first time, it's like, oh my God, do I want to experience this? Why not? I don't know what the experience will be like, and what if he doesn't like it? So these are just some of the thoughts that come up, right? And especially because there's so much pressure put on women about body image, and a lot of insecurities come up. It's something you have to kind of just talk it out. So yeah, a lot of personal care and self-love has to happen around oral sex. Like, you have to have that conversation, and a woman has to feel comfortable with her own body in order to have someone's face down there, right? It's pretty like open and exposed to have oral sex with someone. Yes, it's better with a person you love. I would agree. Sex with someone you love can be better. Not always is it better, right? Sometimes you can have really passionate sex with someone who's a rando, and it just happens to be amazing. So, on getting back to desire, because I don't see any more questions popping up. One of the things I wanted to talk about is that men and women do experience desire a little bit differently, in terms of when studies have been done to kind of see like what physically arouses, right, a woman versus a man. Men are pretty straightforward, right? If they are heterosexual, they want to see girl on girl or guy on girl, right? That's what they want to see. Now, and that's what arouses them. So if you put on some porn that's, you know, heterosexual sex, it arouses them. And if you put on porn that is like woman on woman, then that arouses them as well, right? With gay men, gay sex, right, is pretty much what arouses them. And then when you get into women, heterosexual women, or bisexual women as well, there is a much larger spectrum of things that arouse them. Like everything, like anything really can arouse a woman. It really depends on what she likes, right? What's her experience? How do you define too much porn watching? So too much porn watching. I think this is, you know, I don't say that sex addiction is a thing, but it can get to a point where either porn consumption or over consuming of sex, right, is impeding your life, right? So when you don't have control as to whether or not you can or say no to it, I think that's when there's a boundary that's kind of like being blurred, right? Where it might turn unhealthy because you're stopping to functioning, right? Like you're not living your life, right? So what might that look like? So if you're consuming porn at work and then you get fired because you're consuming porn at work, that's a sign. If you come home and that's all you want to do all the time, when does it become an addiction? So porn addiction, I don't think it's necessarily considered a real addiction. That's still, when it comes to sexuality, there's such a general spectrum that it's really hard to say when something's an addiction. So there is no like psychological definition in the DSM that says sex addiction. You have to find a person when it's addiction. So when it's addiction, a lot of the times, there's an underlying issue. Like porn is not necessarily it. It's what is underlying that porn is satisfying, right? So if that's, you have a deep desire for intimacy and connection, and porn is the only way that you're getting it. Or you have fantasies that you can't express to your partner, and you seek them out in pornography. So really, just being aware of like what is underlying, and that's why people go to sex therapists, and I strongly believe in sex therapy, right? I at one point wanted to become a sex therapist, and since have kind of redirected my life, but it's something that can happen. I was asking if you're addicted to porn, you have a problem. If you're addicted to porn, I think that's again a question that is like, how do you define addicted to porn, right? Because if you're consuming porn 2-3 times a day and you're fine with that and you're functioning well and your life is going as you want it to go, then I wouldn't say that that's a problem. But this another person can be watching porn 2-3 times a day, and it completely changes the way that they interact in the world, and they're no longer functioning in their lives, and that could be a problem. So really is it disrupting your day-to-day life? And if it is, seek out some support. So with desire, men and women experience it differently, and desire actually increases, right? So one of the misconceptions is that, there's desire just happens, and yes, it does just happen, but also you can create desire, right? So the more you engage in sexual activity, the more desire kind of generates. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I think there is a lot of people in different languages, and I can't really understand what they're saying. Que no sé. So that is definitely something that you want to keep in mind, that if you have a low sex drive, low desire, you might just want to go for it, right? And either engage in masturbation or engage in sexual activity, and that can actually kickstart more desire. So for women, 1/3 of women actually lose desire at some point, right? And this is women from age 18 all the way to 65. Why you talk about sex? Because I am a sexuality expert and a coach, so that's why I love talking about it. Love helping people out. So a lot of women, 1/3 of women actually experience losing desire, and that's something that isn't talked about, isn't normalized, and no one really knows how to deal with it. And this can be because of hormone changes, societal influences, culture, psychological factors. For a lot of for women, it's not just physical. There's a lot of psychological stimulation that goes into it. Stress definitely is part of it, and it can be something that causes shame and blame and guilt. It's too hard to understand for you, my friends in French. I'm sorry. I love you, French. Frenchies. But I know it can be a little bit hard to follow. So definitely being just mindful that if you are losing desire, there's nothing wrong in that, it's part of the life cycle. It happens. If there's a really big dip, right, like the huge dip in desire, then you do want to seek out support from a medical person, right? Go to your OB/GYN and talk to them about what's happening, and they might refer you to someone else. But also, there's things that you can do, like making sure that you're in balance, like your energy centers are in balance. A healthy practice of masturbation, a healthy practice of exploring your sexuality with yourself or a partner are things to really keep the sex drive going. So also, I want to talk about, desire is both physical and mental, right? So don't forget that sexual thoughts, if you stimulate your mind, it stimulates your body. There's a correlation. So remain, open to having sexual erotic fantasies and daydreaming about sex and really just exploring it through that. And the last tip that I have for you all today is being willing to be sexual, right? Even sometimes, your desire might not be like all the way up here, but be willing to be sexual, and that really can open up the door to more desire. Desire, you think, can be mental and physical. Yes, that is scientifically proven that desire is both mental and physical. I was thinking it is the same thing. So physical is literally a physical response happens, and not always does a physical response happen when we're thinking, right? But usually there is a correlation. Sometimes you just have a sensation physically and then that causes thoughts, or vice versa. You can have thoughts and that causes a physical. Can you go over those tips quickly one more time? Yeah, so tip number 1 is really making sure that you are in alignment, that your energy centers are in alignment, especially your sacral chakra. That's where a lot of that sexual energy is harvested, and it's centered there. So you want to hone in on whether or not you are in alignment. And if you aren't sure if you're in alignment, that's something I help my clients with. So feel free to visit my website, sexualitypower.com. Email me, Dieniz, Dieniz, at sexualitypower.com, or info@sexualitypower.com. Either way, I will get it. And that's work that I do with my clients. And it's really fun work to work with the chakras. And I will actually be launching later this year, around March, a chakra program. So hopefully you all can benefit from that program as well. Tip number 2 is really becoming aware that sexual desire goes up and down. It changes throughout our life cycle, and it's both mental and physical. So the more you engage in pleasure for yourself, the more arousal and desire that's going to be created. So, not to say if you lose it, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's not necessarily entirely true, but the more you use it, the more it arises, right? And then, having a willingness to be sexual, even if the desire is not completely there. What are we talking about? We have been talking about desire. You talk about sexual, you talk about love also. Yes, I do. I talk about everything from spirituality to sexuality, love, relationships, really coming into your power, right? So for me, talking about desire is really going back to being powerful in your own body, right? And living through your sexuality in a powerful way. So knowing how desire influences your sex drive and how your sex drive can be stimulated, I think is a powerful way to tap into your sexuality and be and express yourself. So a lot of the information I give is really at the end of the day to support people in exploring themselves, in being their full divine selves, their full sexual selves. So thank you for asking that. And then, because desire is both mental and physical, just know that sexual thoughts, fantasies, and daydreams are things that you can engage in to really stimulate that. Someone asked about porn. Is overconsumption of porn bad? It's not bad unless it's disrupting your life. And at that point, I wouldn't even say it's bad. It can be problematic, but I don't think that anything regarding sexuality is bad. Unless it's causing harm to you or someone else. And then one little snippet I'll recap is that men and women do experience desire differently. Women, there's a lot more social and cultural influence, right, and psychological influence than for men. For men, it's a lot more physical, but there's still that mental component. So don't forget to stimulate the mind. And that will cause your sex drive to increase and really want to explore more sexually. What do you do for control your desire? So that the way the question is phrased, controlling our desire, I think that is in the question itself, I find it problematic because I'm about expressing our desires, right? Yes, there is regulation of our desires, right? Knowing when some of our sexual energy is creative versus when it's sexual. But really, you can't control anything, right? Control is not real. No need to control. Yeah, just be and enjoy. So if you're having a lot of sexual energy and you don't know what to do with it, I do encourage you to reach out, because that's something I help coach people through, how to navigate that energy and channel it into what they really want to create in this world. So again, just visit my website, sexualitypower.com, and you can find out more information there about how to connect with me. So this is about it for me in terms of time. I do have to jump on my Spanish Periscope at 4:30, and it's 4:32. But if the desire can't be I didn't catch that comment, feel free to throw it back up. I will wait around to see if you throw up the comment again, because I know it's being vulnerable. Thank you, Hallie. Thank you, Zoraida, for joining. I'm not catching anyone else's comment. Just a question: how can I make my girlfriend comfortable enough to have anal sex, or just stop trying? So, big dogs. We cannot make anyone do anything or feel anything, right? People feel it and do it because they desire to. So I promise, tomorrow, come back tomorrow at exactly 4, because I will be doing a special scope just for you, big dogs. We'll talk tomorrow about anal sex and all of that. If she doesn't want to, you should be okay with that. That is true as well. If she's not interested, then, it is what it is. She might not be the person for you if that's what you're interested in, right? So that's kind of, we go back to our needs. And sometimes our needs are incompatible with our partners. And you have to accept that sometimes. So all of that we will talk about tomorrow